Hello, my name is Peter Kassel, and I'm CEO and co-founder of HealthySole. We have developed a device that uses UVC light to deal with one of the most under-addressed reservoirs of pathogen spread and contamination, the soles of shoes. The problem is that HAIs continue to be a problem for hospitals. While we've seen decreases in numbers between 2015 and 2019, the strain of COVID-19 brought us back up to 2015 levels. That means roughly 700,000 infections within a hospital, resulting in roughly 72,000 deaths, and an estimated cost of lost to hospitals of $40 billion in today's money. To top this off, the CDC estimates that nearly 70% of these infections are preventable. They suggest that 1 out of every 31 patients that enters into a hospital will leave with an infection that they did not have prior. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Center for Epidemic Preparedness is tracking 7 diseases currently with pandemic potential. So we could be looking at a very new world in terms of trying to deal with infection prevention. The biggest issue that we see is that floors have not really changed much in terms of being addressed for the last 70 years. You'll vacuum, sweep, mop at a 12 to 24-hour interval. But the CDC shows that within 3 hours, your floor is dealing with the same level of pathogenic load that it was prior to treatment. That can mean up to a 21-hour period in which your floors are highly contaminated. Why this is important is that the floor is not the final destination for pathogens. Footsteps, the movement of materials, air circulation, carts, all of these cause a cloud of these microbiology to go up into the air 5 to 6 feet, landing on touch surfaces, patients, beds, and more. Ironically, shoes are both the most contaminated and most mobile item in any healthcare facility. Think of every place that you've walked today and what you've brought with you on this entire trip, everywhere you went in the airport. Think of every patient that a provider sees on their rounds or a nurse treats. All of these are coming with them from point A to point B, being deposited on the floor and kicked up into the air. Worse still is that clinical studies show that every method that we use right now is at best inconclusive of dealing with these issues, while also being at worst ineffective. What we see as the solution is HealthySole. You stand on the device for 8 seconds, UVC is exposed to the sole of the shoe, and we see a reduction of 99.99% of HAI-causing pathogens. The idea would be to place it frequently throughout troubled areas within a hospital. While the entrance might seem like the #1 place to place one of these items, the truth is that a hospital deals with a pretty significant irony in which you're bringing the most infectious patients into a building that is treating the most susceptible. It's a highly visible effort by a facility to treat the issue. We've heard great responses from nurses and healthcare providers feeling as if they are being protected just as much as the patient. We also see a reduced cost in expensive chemicals and solvents and ineffective booties. Booties are roughly 25 to 50 cents for a piece, and you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of them discarded on a monthly basis. These are only meant for biohazardous material, not for microbiology. A customer of ours that had adopted the product during the COVID-19 pandemic had seen a 0 patient-to-care transmission of the COVID-19 disease, even while dealing with 70 to 80 people at a time in their ward. You'll see here our kill rates. We have UVC is extremely effective against viruses, then bacteria, then funguses and mold. Interestingly, we've seen a real-world example in which we placed a unit with no UVC coming out and a unit with UVC coming out next to each other in 2 different rooms. We then tested the presence of C. diff at the clean air input. That means where treated air is coming back into the room, as well as a 1-foot space on a wall. We then had the medical professionals use the item. They recorded a 70% compliance rate in terms of using our product, and we saw a reduction of C. diff in both of those areas, both in the number of colonies and the density of them, by 30%, just by this product being used. You'll see here a study that we did with the University of Houston School of Pharmacy. We spiked a DNA-tagged strain of E. coli on the sole of shoes. We then moved through a mock hospital room as if we were a medical care professional and tested each of these surfaces. They did hundreds of swabs on the floor, the furniture, the bed, and the patient. You'll see that 100% of those swabs came back positive for E. coli. 98% on the furniture family would sit on. 96% of the swabs on the patient came positive for that strain of E. coli. When repeating this process using our product, we saw a 90% reduction of President E. coli on the furniture, the bed, and the patient, with a 70% reduction on the floor itself. What we see is a very large addressable U.S. market, roughly $2.6 billion, when accounting for hospitals, private practices and dental facilities, long-term extended care, ambulatory surgery centers, testing laboratories, compound pharmacies, and that goes on. When we look at the worldwide markets and new verticals that have become very clear to us during the COVID-19 pandemic, we see this grow by roughly $5 billion. This is EU initiatives, continued pandemic outbreak, logistics and shipping processes, sterile manufacturing, and much more. Over the last year, what we've worked on is building distributor networks and connections. We had signed with Direct Supply, and at the beginning of this year, signed with Henry Schein. We dealt with UVC compliance, which we have been always up to date with, and ETL has updated their processes, which we have now passed in terms of safety compliance. We have worked on, have a draft, and are going to be submitting a systematic review about the issue that shoes pose to medical facilities. And in the future, what we would like to do is very much implement an office in the European Union. There are a lot of efforts to adopt technologies like this there, and we see a very big potential there. The current revenue model is selling the unit for $55.95. We have annual replacement parts that are roughly $300, as well as optional warranties and servicing plans that come with extra costs. The estimated cost of goods sold is 25% with a 75% gross margin. We have a leasing program driven by Mitsubishi Financial, which is also then followed up as a white-labeled HealthySole financial plan, and we've seen significant international appeal. Most of our products and customers have been from overseas. We have strong utility patents. We have 3 utility patents on the way the product is built. These have also been issued in China, South Korea, Spain, Japan, and we're waiting on India. The competition currently is booties, which are wasteful and ineffective for this kind of process, tacky mats, which only deal with detritus and particulates, wet baths, which are completely unusable in this type of facility, and mopping, which is infrequent, prone to human error, and uses chemical solvents. There's one direct UVC-based competitor. They advertise that they emit ozone, which is a known irritant and could be subject to 510K FDA clearance. They're 6 times more expensive, and they use a brittle and costly quartz plate. As well, they pose significant regulatory issues due to the amount of UVC that comes out. What we've seen is that our greatest sales have been from returning customers, customers who purchase a few of them for their own pilot studies and adopt very heavily. For an example, we sold 3 units to a long-term extended care network. They came back and purchased 105 new units on the spot. Our team has a long history of medical sales. The CEO, our chairman is the CEO of 2 public companies, made exits. Our top advisors are the previous CEO of APIC, as well as top sales managers for groups like Postmates and Yelp. We're looking to continue to build strong connections in these areas and make strong growth sales. We started with the idea in 2011, but we began healthcare sales in 2018. We've raised roughly $5 million from the founder, family, and friends. We have 65 clients in 3 key verticals and have generated $1.3 million in the last 2 years. And we have strong interest from the top independent researchers in the country, as well as key opinion leaders. To recap, HealthySole is a proven way of dealing with the most unaddressed pathogen contamination method in a hospital. There is a huge untapped market across any number of verticals which have been made clear by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have great distributor acceptance in terms of our technology. Follow that up with a strong team with a history of technology and medical sales, and we believe that this provides a really great opportunity for the future of medicine. My name is Peter Kassel. I'm CEO of HealthySole, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.